Good morning. A warm welcome to the 6th Asian Financial Forum. This is a good occasion for us to discuss the world's problems, challenges, and opportunities. You are here today because, as the year's theme suggests, Asia is shaping the new global landscape, and Hong Kong, the region's business hub, is where it is all happening.
The economies in this region have become more deeply connected, also in terms of finance and investment. This forum is an important platform not only for nations in this region, but also for countries around the world to get more involved in the growth of Asia.
Hong Kong's role as the offshore RMB hub is part of national policy enshrined in the 12th five-year plan. Additionally, we have the largest offshore RMB liquidity pool, and the operating hours of our RMB real-time gross settlement system overlap with those of the European markets, forming a RMB clearing platform that serves some 200 banks in Hong Kong, mainland, and overseas.
Opening up the capital market is and will always be our long-term policy. We welcome friends from overseas to come to our market and join us in developing a more open and inclusive capital market in China.
Australia supports China's efforts. That's why last July we agreed with Hong Kong to a new dialogue between business leaders in Australia and Hong Kong on RMB trade and investment. Since then, Australia has actually climbed from 12th to 4th among countries outside China and Hong Kong for the use of the RMB for global SWIFT payments.
Now, as an American coming to Hong Kong to speak to a group of important Asian decision makers, one message that I would like to get across to you is this. No matter how our fiscal problems are resolved, the U.S. consumer is no longer likely to be the engine of world growth.
Before the eruption of the global financial crisis, or even up to now, the ratio has doubled to 320% of GDP. The excessive leverage or over-indebtedness of economies of households have led to this crisis. And as a result, the consequence or inevitable consequence or solution to this problem is deleveraging.
We know that just deleveraging per se and reducing public expenditure or increasing taxes, all that we need to do, of course in my country we needed to do to bring the balanced budget, then will have short-term major negative impact on your economy. But that is an absolute price that you need to pay, but has to be matched by what I just said, major reform.
Korea will do its part and continue to implement the new financial reform measures, such as introduction of central counterparties, information sharing on tax havens, and the regulation on systematically important financial institutions.
We should be prudent about how to apply regulations, how to design regulations. It shouldn't have a negative impact on macroeconomy too much. Of course, deleverage is needed, but too speedy, too rapid deleverage should be avoided.
I also stress the importance of ethical behavior. Not to say that ethics is something that we only discovered after the 2008 crisis, but we often forgot it. And if there is a need for regulation, I think that regulation comes after the ethical behavior. In other words, if there is ethical thinking in the private sector, regulation is less necessary.
I would even exaggerate that a little bit further, saying that I'm quite worried if we do not understand the real root causes of the crisis. Not only we have not seen the crisis is past, but we might not even see the worst of the crisis.
everybody's able to be optimistic, but in part they're able to be optimistic because they think they're going to export more. And some people are going to end up being able to export more, but it would be kind of surprising if everybody was able to export more. So I think one should still have a fair amount of caution about the global situation.
In this sea-changing financial landscape, the structure, the scope, and approach of financial regulation unfortunately remain pretty much the same as before. Consequently, the effectiveness of financial regulation became more challenging.
It has rightly become accepted wisdom that for trust to be restored in banks and financial institutions generally, a fundamental change of culture is required. Compensation policy is at the root of such change. Financial institutions need to encourage behavior that puts the customer ahead of the short-term financial interests of the banker or broker.
It's important to have the right tools and the resources to deal with structural change that's occurring in the securities regulatory space. Secondly, in terms of dealing with innovation and complexity, it's about being proactive and forward-looking. And thirdly, in terms of continued globalization, what becomes absolutely critical is global cooperation. I feel it's important that reform efforts assess very carefully the wider application of such measures. The wholesale adoption of bank-centric and prudentially driven measures in the name of financial stability without a careful assessment can have very adverse consequences to capital markets.
The question in my mind, at least, and I think in your mind is, given what is now happening in the whole world, where are the real opportunities for investment around the world today?
We're making a heavy bet on Asia. If you look at what we've done recently, we've bought a life business, Thanachart in Thailand, we've opened in Cambodia, and you could ask why. Why aren't we investing in the UK? Why aren't we investing more in the US? Well, we are invested in the US, and anyone who writes off the US is making a mistake. There are 10,000 people retiring at the moment every day in the US.
China is going to be the most or the fastest growing market or country, and we want to see more synergy. Of course, China is going to be a major driving force. There may be a lot of other regions and countries that may enjoy synergy with China, so we may be able to enjoy more opportunities from this area.
Indonesia is the 15th largest economy, and in 2030 it's planned to be the 7th largest economy in the world. So the consumer has tasted success. And the inflection point is when people have tasted success, they start requiring different things. They go from tap water to bottled water. They go and buy more expensive shampoos.
This is always a fun panel. Every year we just have fun because this is the last session of the day. We want to make sure that you don't fall asleep.
Taiwan, wonderful, great. It's only 23 million population, people. Certain things you can do it in Taiwan, certain you have to go to China. As simple as that. I consider myself a Chinese with a big C, which encompasses both areas.
And Hong Kong, of course.
And of course, Hong Kong.
The safety factor for foodstuffs. Are you not afraid of pressures from the governments, like the US government or other governments, and they will not sell the foodstuffs to you? From my point of view, Australia, Canada, even Russia, Argentina, Brazil, the Ukraine, US, you name it. All these countries are afraid that China will not buy from them. They are more afraid of this than of anything else because they have done so much investments. They have so much food produce.
With the new political leaders, do you think there will be a change to the situation or to the balance between SOEs and privately run enterprises? If they don't manage the situation, if they don't control the situation, then I think the privately run enterprises will be able to develop. But if they continue the austerity measures, if they formulate a lot of policies, if they want to favor the SOEs or centrally run enterprises, i.e. the elder brothers, then it's difficult for the privately run enterprises to develop.